I was out drinking in Chicago. My friend Zephyr said to me, "Drew, I got this great idea. Let's go to 7:30 Bikram class." Sure, yoga. This is what the most worthless people on the planet do. They just stand there. The sweating and like the catharsis of it, and also the fact that I just could not do it. I have felt trauma unlock from muscles that have been frozen in place for decades, and I felt something rip in my back.
Welcome to the podcast. I'm very happy to have here today as my guest, Drew Brennan. Welcome, Drew.
Thank you, Sasha.
So maybe just introduce yourself with a few words, your name, what you do, how you came to the studio.
I've been in Berlin now for 11 years and have been an active Bikram yogi since 2006, September. So I think as long as Nelly has. My whole life I have been a working artist, ranging in media from calligraphy to content production. I worked for an ad agency in school. I got a scholarship to a big school in America for photography, and then soon found myself being flown around all over the country doing content for big brands, and yeah, kind of have balanced my whole life between working in commercial art and working on my own personal projects. Do a lot of music stuff. Also in Berlin, I fell into a career in cooking and have worked for numerous chefs, catering companies, events, all these type of like aesthetic arts. That's what I really like enjoy doing.
So how was your first Bikram class? What made you go to a Bikram class, and what did you think after the first experience?
Actually, it was a drunken dare that found me in the first Bikram class. I was out drinking in Chicago with two of my roommates at a bar in Wicker Park, and I was drinking scotch that evening, if I remember, and I was on maybe my 7th or 8th scotch of the night, and you know how sometimes when you get like so drunk that you almost like kind of rise from the dead and you're kind of excited to like it's almost morning and you're like, wow, I'm so drunk. Yeah. So my friend Zephyr, who has the strangest American name ever, Zephyr Fotenhauer, shout out to Zephyr, said to me, "Drew, I got this great idea. Let's go to 7:30 Bikram class." And this was at 5 a.m. in a smoky dive bar in Chicago. And being as though I hated physical activity, I hated sports, I just avoided it like the plague. I kind of thought, sure, yoga. This is what the most worthless people on the planet do. They just stand there. They just like grab their bodies. No, I only had hatred and contempt for people that did yoga. I didn't know why. I didn't understand it. I just knew that I wasn't gonna do that, you know. And so then drunkenly, when my friend gave me a dare to go to Bikram, I said, oh yeah, of course I'll go to that. Yeah, I'll join those losers, no problem, you know. And I remember it was maybe like a 40 or 45 person class in this huge wooden room. It used to be like an old ballet studio or something with giant ceilings and hardwood floors, and I was crammed right next to one of the most beautiful women I had like ever seen in my life, and she knew that I was just a complete wreck, and she was just laughing at me like the entire time, and it was so disorienting and so funny of an experience. I enjoyed so much of the sweating and like the catharsis of it, and also the fact that I just could not do it. Like I couldn't do a single pose, and somehow I ended up just really loving it. I ended up emerging from that room completely changed about my views of yoga, and So they had, at this studio, they had like a 1 week introductory 7 or 10 day for, I think it was $25 or $30. And yeah, and I just knew I was gonna come back. And also the memory that really stands out of my first Bikram session is when I went down the stairs and left the studio, my body for the first time talked to me and told me how to feed it. And I had never heard my body say anything like that to me. And it told me, it said, Drew, do you know what I need? And I said, what? It said, a salmon fillet on a spinach salad and a giant glass of orange juice. And I said, okay, I will feed you.
You listened.
Yes, and I did that. So that was like a huge turning point in my life, honestly. I immediately went back to my second or third class maybe 36 hours later, and I immediately asked, could I work there? Is there any way that I could exchange labor for classes? They said, oh, luckily we need karma yogis, and I learned about the karma yogi system, and then I was working there every day almost, basically. On the way to and from school, I was finding always a way to take class and to become more dedicated of a yogi. It just...
Oh, wow, that's like an instant 180-degree change of perspective.
Yeah.
What you would think about it. I was in a similar boat 15 years ago. Someone had told me yoga will change your life. Yeah, this hippie stuff, I don't want to have anything to do with that. But once it tapped into this power, it really has the power to change you as a human being and turn you into a better person. So what would you say is the biggest positive impact that you had after practicing hot yoga for a longer period of time?
I would say that the positive benefits to me are manifold. They are many. I had a lifetime of self-hatred and bullying as a kid, being as though I have a lot of hair. I'm a very scruffy person. And growing up in Los Angeles, where everyone was hairless and very of a certain body type, I was unmercifully beat up and terrorized as a kid. And I think that also led to me getting away from sports, competitive sports, also in the locker room when everyone is kind of in your business. I just was very afraid of all of that. And Bikram Yoga was the first place that I genuinely felt okay, just being in just basketball shorts or being in an outfit that didn't hide me. So that in itself was such a big positive benefit in Bikram for me, and I kind of feel that must be the same for other men as well. I kind of assume, because sometimes there's vibes where men have a very kind of sheepish oh, can I go without a shirt or something, and I think it's, Bikram yoga is this, hot yoga is this special, it's a kind of sacred space, just to share class with people. So there's this aspect, this aspect of being in a communal space and just sharing presence with other people in not all your clothes. It's just kind of it's just a level of intimacy.
Yes.
Yeah. So there was this, and then also, this makes me think of the original treatise of yoga by Patanjali, where he talks about yoga being a union of breath and spirit, essentially. And I guess we could throw body in there as well. Learning yogic techniques of engaging with the breath and body, it just changed my whole attitude. It decalcified my pineal gland. I have felt in yoga poses trauma unlock from muscles that have been frozen in place for decades. And when you taste this kind of transformation yourself, there really isn't Yoga is not about like looking like a perfect model or like achieving a fitness goal, like running a marathon and beating a world record. You know, yoga is like a very sympathetic, very compassionate, individual style of exercise that involves tranquility and peace and strength. And I honestly didn't know that world existed until I found hot yoga. So
Yet you still have to be able to confront yourself and have the will or the guts, so to speak, to present yourself in that room, in this shared space where everybody shares how they look in this bright room. So before you get to this point of acceptance, you first have to be willing to confront yourself in a way and make the first step. I mean, if you're trying to push someone into the room, it won't work. You have to do it willingly. You have to be willingly open to the experience of facing yourself the way you are today. So, on a more lighter note, what was the funniest thing, or do you have like a funny situation that happened in the hot room or outside the hot room that you'd like to share?
I mean, for some reason, I think of this time where someone passed gas really terribly, like in America, and it just kind of hung in the room, and it kind of taught me a lot about meditation. Just that somehow strikes out at me, where the person next to me even had this guilty aura of kind of like, I know this guy smells like what I made, and you know, even at that point, you have to be gracious and compassionate. You say, oh, of course, this was wind removing pose, and the wind was removed from you.
And the pose was successful. But it just underlines the intimacy of the room.
Yeah, and also it for me is also about cultivating value, like human values that I cherish, like compassion, and also when somebody does something a bit socially uncomfortable, you know, you can stop the class and say, "Oh my God, like what are you doing?" You know, and this is somehow to me very un-yogic, you know, like to want to create a scene. Or I think yoga has so much, like I think of a yoga pose like tree pose that we do just before the floor series, and then this is this kind of unshakable peace, you know, you're rooting into the earth, and you have this unshakable kind of tree pose of peace, and nothing can alienate you from that. And over the years, as I've practiced yoga, I find myself integrating what I learn in the yoga room outwards, like, and taking, you know, tree pose, maybe a modified form of tree pose to, for example, a Liedl line that isn't moving. And
just as a mental state.
yes, and also just checking in with my body. I go, where's my alignment? Where's my peace? It's right here. And that's something that I think is like a real treasure box, like of yoga, is these internal tools that we build in the hot room to then make our lives easier and more rich and convenient, kind of, in a way. Like I get so much I'm so much less stressed, like with yoga, you know, regardless of whatever kind of day I'm having. I can go on that mat and I can find my inner bliss and beauty that I have been cultivating for almost 20 years now, and it's there. It feels very like peaceful, like a peaceful mountain or something. Yeah.
What I always feel when I don't make time to go to yoga room, there's really something missing, and then the moment you get back to it, maybe after 7 or 8 days of not having taken class, you're like, okay, why didn't I do this more regularly? So how often do you go to class? Or is there a certain rhythm that you have to keep in order to maintain this inner state of being balanced?
There are some weeks where I go between 3 and 5 times a week, and there are also, strangely enough, times and weeks where I have to actually stay out of the yoga room, where I also have a lot of work to do, and somehow my body is telling me, okay, don't push yourself, like just find the meditation and stay in form somehow. Yeah, ideally I'm going 3 to 5 times a week. Yeah, I had a point that I wanted to bring up with you, since we talk a lot in class about various stuff, and what I was thinking, what I love about yoga is I view sometimes yoga as technology. Like, I think like it's a very it's old technology somehow, but I wanted to know, what did you think of this like idea? Do you have anything to speak about with yoga as one of the oldest technologies that humans have?
As a tool to master the most powerful thing that you have access to, which is your mind. Yeah. What I found more interesting in the last couple of years of me practicing was the direct connection of your body and how you move your body and the emotional reaction it has, and also when you feel like your body reaches a certain limit, that you can overcome these limitations with the mind. So in these terms, it really is a very, very powerful cultural technique or cultural tool to master the biggest gift that humans have, which is the mind and the creativity that comes along with it. So yeah, that would be my take on that.
Yeah, I like that. And also I want to add to that in an increasingly technologically based society, yoga is technology that is somehow integrated within us. It's totally organic. It comes from us, and it doesn't require circuit boards or any sort of external device. We just turn it on and access it. Yeah. But I think I find that eternally fascinating to me, and also how the deeper I get into yoga, also at Mahalaya, which I feel is kind of undergoing a little renaissance right now. There's a lot of like in the past year, Mahalaya has really been generating a lot of like great mojo, and like I just want to say kudos to the studio and to the staff and everyone who makes that possible, because it's very like contagious in a good way. It's very inspiring for people, and more and more I'm seeing people in hot classes that have never been, they are finding the same place that I was finding 20 years ago, where you come in that class and you do those 26 poses and you are just hosed. You have no concept of reality afterwards, you know what I mean?
And maybe sometimes in between. So speaking about the 26 poses, do you have a favorite pose and why?
So many cringe-worthy, like, so many poses that I love to hate, honestly. I would say bow pose, standing bow, is just always making me, it's always pushing me into some really just wild place, into places I never thought I could go in my own body, but also finding the balance of kicking and stretching forward, and that's a very difficult pose. I think the pose that I have the biggest the biggest challenge, and therefore the biggest like uphill battle with, is a half locust, and I think I'm not alone in half locust. Like that is just like, I don't know who created that or why they did that still, but
yeah, everyone wondering what this pose is. So you have your arms underneath your body, lying on your belly, and then you lift your both legs up as high as you can. It can feel uncomfortable, and actually it became one of my favorite poses in class because it is so challenging but also so rewarding, because one of the biggest gains that you can make as a person in that class is building up resilience. I talked about that in the first talk that I had with Nelly. And I just wanted to ask you, how do you perceive that? Or is that also something that you found or is that also something that you found in the room within yourself?
Man, you have opened up this is the heart of this discussion really for me, because full confession, a year into hot yoga, I was in class and I saw someone do this. And somehow my body told me, why don't you do this? And so I did this, right? And I felt something rip in my back. Like I ripped some really vicious scar tissue of some injury that I had either as a kid or as a really young baby. Like I was born and then had a double hernia operation, like right as a newborn baby. Yeah, and so I feel that when I did this and I ripped this scar tissue, that I still don't really know what happened, but basically like I lost kind of like the ability I've lost a lot of my range of motion. I basically like could not do yoga basically for almost a year, you know? And I was in a lot of pain, and I resented yoga because I thought, oh, yoga has injured me because I did this thing and like this thing ripped in my back and shoulders, and so it's terrible, you know? But something always called me back, and something always said, hey, why don't you just go to class and just like show up and do what you can and like work with this, you know what I mean? And the pain eventually went away. And it's funny because I know now, after physiotherapy, I know now, decades later, that it was an injury that I had sustained very like young as a kid, and my scar tissue had built up in a certain way, like just to kind of restructure my body. And so yoga had actually cut through what my mind could not, you know what I mean? I found this trauma, and my body's own kind of wish to free itself from that trauma. It opened up. It was very painful for me, but it also taught me the value of resilience. Like in yoga, I also realized that on the mat I could heal myself, you know, and it's like yoga has opened up various things in my body, and it hasn't always been pleasant. I can't always say, you know, it's a safe and easy journey, but I think that's what I love about yoga though too, is that it unravels you in yoga in a way. You do things in the present for your future that unravel your past and allow you to de-stress yourself, unplug the trauma, unplug that stress, unplug the voice in your head, you know. Like I think of I went to the 10th anniversary of Hot Yoga Altona, and it was the most brutal class I had ever been to in my entire life. And I literally crawled out. I literally crawled on all fours 10 minutes after the last Savasana had ended. And I was completely destroyed, but at that moment, I was also in utter bliss. Like I also had found this incredible gift of letting go, and also knowing I had pushed myself as hard as I could go, and then treating my body with respect afterwards and saying, okay, don't push yourself. You just hit a milestone. That was like a really wild class. Maybe you have to take 3 or 4 days off to recuperate properly. Yeah. You know, so this is also with resilience as well. You know, you come back to the mat. It's so, to me, it's so, that's what I enjoy about the simplicity, like the elementary aspect of yoga. It's so, you can do it at any time. It doesn't require any, you just have your own body as this kind of brilliant work in progress, you know? So the resilience is like in just coming back, you know? Just
showing up and do what you can.
Yeah, falling out of toe stand, and that's okay, you know? Falling out of tree pose, hey, it's like everyone's bad day, like sometime, you know? It's very like, this hurts, and now 2 weeks ago, or 2 weeks later, I don't feel it anymore. Ah, wow, that must have been from this injury I had when I was like a kid, and now I don't feel that anymore, you know? So there's elements of like coming to plateaus of pain and kind of development in your own body as you find the original symmetry of your body, and then you build on that. But that is, to me, that is like the secret of the universe or something, like to give humans permission and the tools to like feel powerful in like these poses of alignment and to bridge exercise and spirituality. It's like the greatest, it's like you just said, it's just like the greatest technology. You know?
It teaches you also something about life, you know. Even when you fall down in life, you just get back up, and when you're ready, you take the next class. There is a quote that I heard recently, and that I really like because I think it hits true. Yoga is a martial art against yourself. Because everybody can be, or everyone has it in themselves to be their worst enemy, the worst critic of whatever you do, especially when you're a creative type. You're never satisfied with what you do. People are never satisfied with how they look, with what they have achieved already. And in the room, you have to face yourself almost naked. As you said, you're vulnerable, and you're sharing that vulnerability, and you're inspired by others while inspiring others at the same time. So this statement that you get into the ring with your judging self, and you prove that you can be strong and that you have this mental strength, I think is one of the biggest gifts that this practice can give you.
Yeah. Or what about, to add to that, you know, yoga as a martial art? Sometimes martial arts, the best expression of martial arts is like not getting into a fight as well, and also knowing your boundaries. So, you know, it has this martial art aspect as well, where you say, I feel this little crick in my pose. I should just push it to this level, and now I will just stay like in this pose. I don't need to go further.
Yeah, the best fight is the one you're not getting into.
You said it, yes. Exactly. I mean, so this is amazing. So then this is exactly what I wanted to say. Like, you said it perfectly. Yeah.
Who would you advise to come into this class?
Every human on Earth.
Yeah. That's quite simple.
Yes, I think so. Yeah. Because also, in hot yoga, you sweat so much, and we're just not accustomed to that as people. And there's just a certain like primalness to that. It breaks you down. You cannot remain not an animal somehow, like when you are just coated in your own sweat, and the person next to you and your sweat is mixing with that person's sweat, and you're like, whoa, you know, it's just kind of, there's nowhere to go, you know. And that's something that, like, I only wish in our techno-obsessed society that people feel the need seek refuge in disciplines like hot yoga and places like Mahalaya, because I feel like these places are very rare and they're very sacred, because here humans have to hang up their jobs, they have to hang up their class, their place in life, their economic, their social status. Yes, exactly. And through these 26 poses, like, we all discover union and we all have communion with each other. And yeah, and I feel like hot yoga is really undergoing a renaissance right now. Like, Mahalaya really has a special mojo, and I really hope that that just continues, because people in this day and age need this more than ever. They need to be out of their heads and in their fulfilled in their bodies and minds.
Is there anything that you feel like you would add to the conversation?
Yeah, for any yogi that's listening, I would say be delicate. Like, be delicate and leicht with yourself. Like, treat yourself so full of worth. Like, treat yourself so valuable in the room that you don't feel the need to compete or push yourself, like, with against anybody or anything. I think that would be my advice to any yogi, is like to be easy on yourself, and being easy doesn't even necessarily mean not being hard, but like, being easy just means to operate with awareness and forgiveness, and also with true love for yourself. Like, just to feel symmetry, to be in the room and not need to speak or enter into your monologue, you know, just be lighter with yourself. Because in America, there was always this kind of boot camp aspect to hot yoga, and you know, kind of the founder of hot yoga, his methods kind of, you know, just leaked out. Yeah, a lot of name calling and kind of trying to encourage people in a kind of negative way to push themselves, which I think it basically does not work. So yeah, I only hope that people find the non-competitive edges of yoga. And it's like you said, it's a martial art that you compete, like, where you compete against yourself. And so I would say, let yourself win, let yourself lose. Like, just lose yourself in winning, because everyone is winning in yoga. It's always a win-win in the yoga studio. There you go.
I also feel, because you mentioned it, the style of teaching the class has changed, and this is also something that I put a big emphasis on, and Nelly already put this emphasis on before I took over the studio, that we take a different course other than just going out and screaming at people and not really communicating what the room needs, but also you don't need to have this drill sergeant mode in order to get people becoming present with their body or work with their body and utilize this beautiful tool that everybody has to make it work better. So I'm really glad that you brought this up, that this style of teaching also makes a difference in how you get out of the class and what you get out of class.
Or, like, you know, for example, even in half moon pose, people have this obsession of turning 45 degrees and doing their hip stretch to the utmost, and they don't even properly extend vertically before going over. They just want to kind of look like a bent dach or like a bent roof or something like that, you know? And what I've found is, if you just go slow into every direction that the teacher is giving you, and you just extend yourself as fully possible, and then you just gracefully tilt yourself over, you may unlock a muscle that you have been overlooking for like 10 or 15 years, because you finally take your mind out of this, oh, I have to bend myself and I have to be flexible because that's yoga. No, yoga is honestly about doing every single move in as graceful and as articulated a way as you can possibly do that for you. And that's also like what I would love to bestow upon yogis. It's not how deep you go. Like they say in class, it's not about how deep you go, it's whether you can like breathe and
stay consciously aware.
There you go.
So yeah, thank you very much for sharing your story, your insights.
My pleasure.
And to all the yogis outside, I hope you enjoyed this podcast. I did very much. Thank you, Drew, again.
Thank you so much.
And yeah, see you on the mat.
Yeah, see you in class.
That was nice.
Yeah.